Hello, and a warm welcome to the webinar. I'm Dr. Fiona Beddoes-Jones, and I'm a UK Chartered Psychologist. In this session on what do followers want from their leaders in a pandemic world, I'm going to be exploring how ideas around leadership have changed since the Second World War and how followers' expectations have also changed, making leadership as a process and as a profession easier for some people and much harder for others. I will share with you what followers used to say that they wanted from their leaders, and together we will explore how your authentic leadership style can enable you to give your followers what they need to thrive in today's world. I would have loved to be able to put post-pandemic world in the title question, but unfortunately I think we all realise that that isn't going to be the case for some time. And we're also going to be doing some live research using Mentimeter, which you can access via menti.com, and I'll give you the codes for that later. So what do followers want from their leaders? Well, those of you who've read the session info will already know the answer. The interesting thing for me when I looked to see if Gallup had updated their 2013 research, especially in the midst of a pandemic, is that they haven't. So it will be really interesting to explore with you how you think the Gallup results might have changed. In 2013, the Gallup research on 10,000 followers showed that first and foremost, followers want to be able to trust their leaders and to be trusted by them. Secondly, they want to know that their leaders genuinely care about them. As Theodore Roosevelt said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thirdly, and these are obviously in ranked order, followers want stability. Whilst changes are constant, they want at least some things to stay the same. And it's an important thing for leaders to remember. Fourthly, followers want hope for the future. I'm going to leave it there as we're going to come back to this research later. I'm now going to move on to consider how leadership has changed over the decades since approximately the 1950s through to the present day. There's a clear progression that you may not have considered before, which I think you will find interesting. The old traditional world was a place where managing, control, and the new science of management took centre stage. Dating from beliefs around productivity in the Second World War, ideas such as Maslow's hierarchy of needs and McGregor's theory X and Y dominated the thinking. Leadership was about power. It concerned money, profits, and bottom line results. Consistency and reliability were the management maxims, and while creativity was encouraged, it was generally limited to generating new product lines. People were units of production, and they didn't really have a voice. If they did speak up, no one was really interested in what they had to say. The exception to this, of course, was the unions. But they concerned collectivism rather than individualism, and again, ultimately, they were all about power. And by the late 1970s in the UK, their power had all but gone. White-collar workers, the middle classes, were always office-bound, and our thinking was local, limited to our own country, a far cry from the global environment we experience today. Everything was standard and standardised, nothing was bespoke. Discipline was key, and the relationship between an organisation and its employees was strictly a transactional one. A lucky few attended standard sheep-dipping training courses designed to churn out people who looked, sounded and thought the same way. Businesses such as ICI, Ford and Shell were monoliths, invulnerable. A whole career could be built and spent inside one. The transitional world of the last 2 decades before the millennium and the first 2 after it has been one of corporate social responsibility. Transformational leadership and authenticity were the new buzzwords, and a plethora of key performance indicators filled the skies like Hitchcock's birds. Because of new flexible working practices and flexible benefits, there was a feeling that we could have it all, and limited creativity gave way to innovation in all areas. The Berlin Wall came down in 1989, and paradoxically, with a now united West, the dichotomy of thinking became that of the West and the Asian East, which was rapidly developing and becoming a new superpower to be reckoned with. Suddenly, everyone was required to develop their emotional intelligence, with Dan Goleman's seminal book, Why EI Can Matter More Than IQ, coming out in 1995. We all had to become flexible and continually improve. Leadership was transformational, and we were being transformed by Kaizen, whether we liked it or not. Businesses wanted to become learning organisations, and purpose was designed to drive profits. In the word of Jim Collins, organisations needed to be built to last. The 2 previous leadership environments are very different to the new world that we now find ourselves living in. COVID-19 has become our greatest short-term and yet paradoxically could also become our greatest salvation, as we ultimately have to learn to live together and collaborate on a shared planet in order to save the planet and ourselves. The traditional focus on reliability has shifted towards genuine sustainability, which can only be achieved through cognitive fitness and disruptive innovation. Even before the pandemic, conventional training was slowly becoming replaced by new thinking around resources, not courses, in an online virtual world where working and learning are increasingly being done remotely. People and organisations are now vulnerable, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Despite implementing their immediate short-term strategies for survival, forward-thinking leaders are focusing on the long win rather than short or medium-term KPIs. Kindness matters, as it always did. It's just that now it matters more. A leader's personal authenticity has, thankfully, finally given way to a greater understanding of authentic leadership. A relational style of people-focused interactions, the key tenets of which are trust and compassion, the things that drive psychological safety, engagement, and resilience. It's only when we look at these different stages of leadership that we can really see how expectations have changed and how each environment has paved the way for the next.